Hello, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours with Arrow, a LinkedIn Live event hosted by Arrow leaders who care about what senior living looks like. I'm your host and producer, Rachel Sheehan, and today our topic is all about education and support for families of individuals with dementia. So today with me, we have Elizabeth, Julie, and Sandy. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Ladies, do you want to give a little background about how you got into senior living? I'd love to hear it.
Go ahead. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Actually, I've always been in healthcare to some degree. Started in dentistry and then I was actually in sales for a home health company and hospice company and was calling bingo at a community. This was years ago. And I just fell in love with the residents and I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so from there, I became an activity director and then a regional activity director and then got into memory care and just love it.
Good.
Oh, I love that. So for me, I was 15 years old and I stepped foot in my very first ever nursing home with my church group. The teen group went and did a service at just a local nursing home. And oh my gosh, I walked in and I just fell in love. And I went home to my mom that day and I said, Mom, I found where I'm going to work. Like I just loved everybody that I seen. And she thought I was crazy because I'm a teenage girl. She's like, Julie, just go to your room. You're being silly. And I'm like, no, I loved it. So I started off as a volunteer my sophomore through senior year. And as soon as I graduated, they offered me a job and I've worked my way up. So I started off as an activity assistant and an STNA and just really found that dementia is my groove. I love dementia.
That's awesome.
Well, my background is mental health. I was a director and worked in inpatient psychiatric adult and geri psych for several years, and then moved into some outpatient therapy and group therapies. My role sort of developed with Arrow when we had COVID several years ago, and a lot of things happened in the healthcare system and certainly in our senior living communities and those kind of areas. And it was hard, and it was hard for the staff with some of the losses that we endured, hard for families. And then the isolation. And so my role sort of developed to come in and help with the mental health aspects of what it is like to care for individuals with dementia and to offer support to families and to loved ones as we work through those things. I also work with the education. So my background has kind of led me to this spot where I really discovered a real desire to be a part of a memory care dementia community and neighborhood and help out where we can.
That's
And
awesome.
she's amazing.
Yeah, we lean on you all the time. We appreciate you, Sandy.
We're a team for sure. Thank you.
That's awesome. I love it. I'm just so glad to have you guys here because this is such an important topic. I don't think everyone always thinks about, we think about our residents, but thinking about their families too. And so with that, kind of walk me through the emotional impact of somebody going through these challenges of the dementia diagnosis of a loved one.
I'll speak first about that a little bit because I think some of the things that happen when a loved one is diagnosed with dementia, there's no wrong or right way to necessarily deal with it. And a lot of people think that it's a solitary kind of a lonely journey. And in fact, we do have people who are going through it with you, and we want to connect you to those kinds of things. That's one of the things that we want to do here with Arrow Senior Living. It's a loss that's different. They call it kind of an ambiguous loss. It's not really a certain death, but there is a change. There is a loss in our connection to our loved ones. And it's hard for people to sort of acknowledge that. So you're kind of in limbo for a little while, and it feels like nobody acknowledges it and you feel alone. And so I think the hard part is the role changes. I mean, we end up changing roles. There's often things that have to happen in the family dynamics. An adult child or a spouse takes more responsibility, or even moving someone out of a family home. Lots of emotional changes, and there is an ongoing grief process, I think, that happens. Mm-hmm. So we recognize that for sure and want to help through that process.
Yeah. And I think the role of senior living, we are providing for the resident that lives with us, and we're advocating for them, but we're also an advocate for the families. This is hard. It's hard, and they need that support and education.
Yeah, and I think what is so challenging when we really think about dementia, there is no like treatment plan for dementia where when you have this is what's going to happen next, and this is what you got to do when that happens. There's just no playbook for that. And that makes this journey really difficult for families because there's not a ton of support. There's not a lot of good education opportunities out there. And Liz and I say this all the time, knowledge is power. I mean, especially when you're trying to navigate this journey.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what you guys have implemented has been so incredible. All the different education pieces. I don't think people always know those exist out there, and you just kind of created them for Arrow. So some of those things, can you tell me about, starting maybe with staff training? Julie, what would you say that experience has been like?
Yeah, so we kind of took a little spin and turn on our training for our teams because training, let's face it, training is not really fun. It's not exciting. A lot of times it's maybe a very boring video that you're watching and a very monotone voice. And so we actually broke that down to where adult learners learn the best. So we took an hour segment of dementia and broke it down into 6 10-minute segments, and it's very interactive. It's a conversation that we're having, but we've seen tremendous impacts with our teams because they're like, oh my gosh, I tried that redirection approach that you guys talked about, or I had no idea about the vision changes that occur with dementia, and I'm now approaching all my dementia residents from the front, and what an impact that has on them. So we know that they are now listening and they're in tune to it because we've met them where they're at and we've made education interesting and fun.
Yeah, real quick, I want to detour a little bit because we have a couple questions.
Ooh.
So I'm going to throw this one up first, but Stephanie would love to hear your thoughts on when memory care should begin. So after that dementia diagnosis, when should memory care begin?
So we actually have an education on this, and I know Julie is going to speak more about our education events, but immediately we should be talking about memory care. We should be researching what does our loved one, our person living with dementia need, looking at different neighborhoods. It's always easier to make that move when you're prepared rather than making that move because of a crisis. So, and crisis can happen at any time. I mean, we're good until we're not. And so being prepared and ahead of the game is where to be.
And I think a lot of times when we do get, their loved ones moved in with us, they actually see the transformation of somebody living with dementia, living in a dementia-friendly environment. We just don't realize how impactful that is. But when they no longer have to worry about walking away and what are they doing, what are they getting into, our neighborhood's equipped for that. So the residents get so much more independence and freedom in our neighborhoods than maybe they do at home. So it's an amazing impact that we see, but it is a hard decision to make too.
For sure. Yeah. And also another one, tell us more about what the Joint Commission Alzheimer's Association certification has meant to us.
Oh gosh.
Yeah,
huge impact. So yes, we are in the process of certifying all of our assisted living memory cares with the Joint Commission accreditation, and it sets the bar even higher. Right. So where we had Arrow has excellent standards in senior living. Following the Joint Commission standards, we're just amping it up that much more. And to be able to say that we have one of the very first memory care neighborhoods in the nation that was certified. Wow. I mean, how cool is that?
Oh, I tell everybody, I'm like, I work for the company. We were the first. I mean, I do. I blast that because it is an amazing, it's amazing. It takes my breath away still. Like, I even love how they hold such a higher standard. It's not just about events and engagement. It's about, are they truly engaged? Like, it's just that added step that we as Arrow, we live and breathe that, but it's refreshing to see that becoming a standard.
Right. The Joint Commission is a gold standard, and to have that overarching in our memory care it's a great thing. It kind of validates the work that we're doing, and it continues to help us get better and better because we're always learning other ways to do things. So, I mean, I think that's a good thing.
That's awesome. Incredible. So that obviously has to reassure families too, right?
Right.
I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. So moving it on to the education events you all offer, could you tell me more about those things?
Oh, yeah. We love talking education. So we have created, between Elizabeth and I, just this beautiful library that houses so many education opportunities for our memory care directors to provide. So we have our memory care directors providing in-person monthly education opportunities. And then Elizabeth and I each do a monthly virtual. We found that these are truly instrumental in providing key education opportunities because like we've all kind of said, there's not a lot out there. There's not, opportunities for our families to receive these without, maybe having to leave their home or go far or,
Pay.
Yeah, pay. Exactly. Yeah, we definitely do this for free because it's just something that we feel is it's so important and it's near and dear to us. But we've actually seen the impact that this has had on individuals living. They don't have to be, have residents in our communities. They don't have to even be prospects.
Right.
We want to be education pillars for dementia out there.
Well, and when you think about it, to us, it's something that we do. It's something we do for a living. It's something we do as professionals, and we want to share the knowledge because you have people who may not know what dementia is until they got their diagnosis with their wife or their spouse or their husband. I mean, you don't know that, and so it's a new game to them, and it seems kind of scary. And if we can help normalize that, validate some of the concerns, and begin teaching at the base level and grow with them, I think that's really important. I think that's something special that we do to help families. And it benefits the individual with dementia too.
Yeah, there's a question about helping families. So what advice do you give to family members who may be feeling guilty about placing a loved one in a memory care community?
I actually had a family member that this came up on one of our virtual education events where we were talking about when to make the move. And for this particular family member, I reversed the situation and I said, do you have children? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, let's say you're the one with dementia. What are your expectations of your children? Do you expect them to keep you in their home with their existing families and care for you indefinitely? Or what are your thoughts? And she was like, no. And I was like, I know it's so hard. I'm going to get emotional. I know it's so hard to make these decisions, but you have to look at it from that perspective because the person living with dementia is probably not safe anymore. And that's the thing that we have to be careful of too. And we see so many people, and Sandy can speak on this, so many people who are caregivers at home and their health declines.
Right.
Because of just, it's 24/7, 365. It's not like, oh, you've got an 8-hour shift and then you get to go. You're on the clock 24/7 and it's exhausting emotionally and physically.
I would probably normalize it with the family member and validate them that it's It's actually okay that you feel a little guilty. It's pretty normal that you feel a little guilty. You're going to feel other things too. You're going to feel a little helpless. You're going to feel a little overwhelmed. You're going to feel a little sad and a little scared. And that's just one of the emotions. I think by moving forward, though, even in that moment of feeling guilty, what you're doing is taking some accountability and responsibility and actually doing something that will help your loved one. Most of the time we make those promises when everyone is young and healthy, and we really don't see that. And in the reality, maybe we say, I promised you I wouldn't do it. But what I really should have said is, I promised you I would protect your dignity. I promised you that I would make sure that you were safe, that I would always be there for you and oversee any other care that you might get, and kind of work in that direction. But realize, even as you're making decisions, you're still doing the best that you can, and the best thing you can for your loved one, and offering them a safe environment. And the cool thing about our environments is there is a lot of routine. There's lots of routines. We do a lot of engagement. There's lots of small things that we work on to make sure that the resident who has dementia feels still involved in the daily things that happen in our neighborhoods. So lots of times there are a lot of things that they get that they might not get at home. And then there's always that sense of socialization and building relationships with our staff. So it is hard. You might feel guilty, but we'll help you work through some of that.
Yeah.
And I think, like, in all the years, Liz, you and I have worked as a memory care director. There has never been one family that has moved in their loved one and say, this is the best day of my life. I'm so glad I'm doing this, you know? And I think that's key. And letting them know that, you know, it takes a team. We are here to support. We know what you're going through and the feelings that you're having. And I think that's where us as Arrow Senior Living, we take that extra step to where we provide that additional support. We don't just say it, we actually provide it.
We partner with the families and with the residents, right?
Yeah, and that's what I've seen through going back to the education events a little bit. I've seen families come together and like stick around and talk after the events because they found that community. So for those watching, can we explain a little bit more about how our events work? Like what are some of our topics maybe? Who leads these education events? How are the virtual ones? You know, things like that.
Yeah, so in most of our locations, our memory care director hosts monthly. It hits our Facebook pages. Again, you don't have to have a loved one in our community to attend. And then Liz and I, we do one virtually every month. Again, you just join from the comfort of your home and you get to learn about dementia.
Right. Yeah, and I love it. The topics range from making the move to memory care, to navigating the holidays, to culinary, to all sorts of things. And I think
challenging behaviors.
How to communicate with someone with dementia. So it goes in many levels of learning.
Yeah, and I think this is even great for our viewers to know, like if you are a senior living professional, you can join and learn too. You don't have to have somebody living with dementia in your family. So just want to open that to everyone.
I actually had two fairly new memory care directors on my last virtual dementia education. It was great having them, you know, even getting their questions and perspectives for the family members that were on there. It was great.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I have to thank you guys because I know my family member in Texas got to join one time, and we don't have communities in Texas. So that's what I want to just spread the word that this is open to anyone who needs support. That's the beautiful thing about it. So I will segue now because we did have a question here switching over to our support groups. So can you share with us the impact your support groups have had with adult children or family members?
Sure. That's a great question. I appreciate it. We do a memory care dementia support group every week for 1 hour. And those are usually published out through our memory care neighborhoods, but I think it does come out in some of our other education pieces as well. And what we find when we bring people together in these memory care support groups is, one, I think we kind of give them a little bit of a gift because all of a sudden they're sitting there looking at other people, and we do this virtually. So they're connected to other people, another daughter, another son, and they're sharing some of the things that go on. And oftentimes I don't have to even speak because there's immediate need to share. I connected two wives who were living with their husbands with dementia. you would have thought that they had just been given this great gift because suddenly they each knew what the other was talking about, and they could talk about some of their worries, about some of their fears, about maybe where they were in the dementia process. So what we're doing is giving people a place to share some of their fears, share some of their successes, maybe some of the things that aren't working for them. And then they also talk about, they're all usually in different levels of their introduction into our neighborhoods. So they're able to look back and say, these are the things I did see when they first came in. These are the things that happened. One of the great things is when we have family members whose loved one maybe has since passed away, but they will come back and they will share with our memory care support group to those who are behind them and tell them about what life was like and how they made it through and the other side of the process of grief. So again, this is not just people who are part of Arrow Senior Living. This is open to other communities. I had someone from New York once tune in and talk about different things. So it's about getting the word out, but it really is sort of a place that feels kind of safe and that you can talk about. And sometimes we find other things out that we bring back to our communities as other things we can learn and do some education on to make it a little better. So it's a great thing that we're doing. And I think it's really helpful. So I appreciate being a part of it. It's one of my favorite parts here.
Yeah, that's incredible. Because I think a lot of times, normally communities have grief support groups. And like you said, dementia or having a family member with a diagnosis can sometimes be this constant grief period. Mm-hmm. And so having that support group is incredible. Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Well, I know another piece, and actually we had people asking about it in the chat saying, I heard there's a podcast. Is there a podcast?
There is a podcast. We did our first series 1, I guess you would say, starting in November of this last year. And we have 25 episodes. They can be found anywhere you listen to podcasts, but it's called Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast. It's been a great avenue. My partner in crime, Charlie Johnson, and I just have casual conversations about different memory care dementia topics. We've talked about bathing in dementia, the different types of dementia. What is dementia? We've talked about dolls in the neighborhood and what that means, how to have meaningful visits, just a whole gamut. We will also be recording next week, actually, and on the longest day, June 21st, which is an Alzheimer's Association celebration day, we will be releasing 8 more episodes, and then we will start back for season 2 in November of next year. So, or I guess this year. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And I put the link in the comments for anybody who wants to see or to listen to the podcast. It's really incredible. And it's just like you're right there talking to a couple friends. So I love it.
And we are. He's my buddy. He's a great guy. And I just feel like we both have family members with dementia. And, it just really puts things into perspective for, I think, families that are listening. And just helping them to see that the person living with dementia, if I have dementia, I am who I was, but I'm different now. And what does that look like? And how should you approach me now that I have dementia? And letting families know that someone living with dementia, their brain is changing. Their brain is in actuality, it's dying. But there are so many tips and tricks and tools that we can have in our tool belt to still have that great relationship with that person that's changing. They can't change like we can. So we have to be the ones to adjust how we approach and how we talk and how we maneuver the different situations that come up with someone who lives with dementia.
Right. That makes me think about the fact that too, as we look at support, our family members, we really don't want to lose those people or have them feel like it's too hard to go visit or too hard to engage. So we do have some volunteer opportunities for family members to join in our neighborhoods. But it's really important that as we put a new memory care or a resident into our neighborhoods, that they join our community. But we really want to make sure that we bring their community with them, because I think that's so important. This has been their community all their lives. And so because something has changed, we want to make sure that they feel integrated and comfortable to come into our neighborhoods and to talk about plans and to be proactive in care plans and to engage. And we really do mine a lot of information from our families. We want to know about their loved one. We want to know how their life has been like before. And we want to try and keep things and honor those individual characteristics of those people, and kind of enhance them if we can, and keep them going as long as possible, and keep them feeling active. Having, like any of us, we want to live until we die. So we want to be active. We want to be engaged. We want to have a quality of life and to be honored and respected. And I think that's certainly our goal, not with only the residents, but with the family members, because they're an important part of our journey here for sure.
Yeah. And if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia. There's not a one size fits all approach or care plan.
The individuality comes with them, right?
Yeah,
for sure. So speaking of your co-host, Elizabeth, Charlie, he wants to throw out there, is our podcast award winning? I know you're so humble, but.
Yes, it actually did win an award.
Congratulations. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Okay,
Information.
Very exciting.
A little off-topic question too, but
we
how
just
can
really
you
like the fact? Oh, I'm so sorry. I think
sorry.
I think it's just good to have an additional platform. We're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, I don't even know all of them, YouTube. But to have another platform to provide education, reduce stigma, and just get the word out.
For sure. So this question, how can you support those family members who have had to step in as caregivers, but maybe had a more strained relationship with their loved one previously?
So I can kind of speak a little bit about that, because that is real. I mean, there's a lot of emotions when you have something happen to a family member or a parent. And so we want to acknowledge those things. We want you to acknowledge those things and realize that let us help take some of those responsibilities. Let us help care for some of those things. You don't have to wear all the roles. You don't have to be all things to your loved one. We can step in. We can offer that. We have a lot of supportive staff. We have a lot of education that we're doing, and we really want to help share the journey, share the load. And that's when it's really good to just communicate those things and needs. And some days are better than others. We all realize that too. Some days you come in and you have this really great visit with your loved ones, and other days it's kind of disturbing. It makes it hard to go back. And we don't want to lose people to that feeling, because every day is a little bit different. We want to encourage you to come back. We'll help you work through some of that in parts of our education, but also just having some staff around to help mediate or work through those things. Don't give up. Stay with us. Yeah.
Well, and every family has different dynamics. I mean, I think, just like you said, Sandy, acknowledging that, because we all have challenges that we've got to work through. But I think what's really cool about us is we'll help them create those opportunities for those meaningful visits. And that is like taking that additional step that maybe other communities haven't thought of, or maybe don't feel it's as important as we do. So I think by us, helping them through that process is really impactful too. And maybe it is just rekindling a relationship, but it won't look like it did maybe 20 years ago, but this is how we can help now.
Right. And there is sort of reconciliation that has to happen when you look at somebody and they look the same on the outside, but on the inside, their ability to communicate is changing. Their engagement is changing. Maybe you see some meanness or different things that you might not have seen before. And it can be very confusing, because you're looking at one thing and your memory is this person as this way. And now you're having to reconcile all that. And it's a journey, not just for the individual with dementia. We know that, but the family members watching all these things happen can be very, very traumatic sometimes. And again, helping them normalize it, helping them validate, reassuring them. I think that's part of our role as we share this journey, but also the meaningful visits are very important, I think, for the residents as much as for the family.
I do too. And I think, Sandy, your support groups have been so beneficial, because, not every relationship, family dynamic is is a positive one, but there's no judgment here.
Right.
You know, there's no judgment. We just want to set you up for success, whatever that may look like. And so I'm so thankful that we have a weekly support group.
Me too.
Yeah, it's helped so many. Oh, I'm so sorry,
No,
Rachel.
go ahead. Keep going.
I'm just really thinking about, we've had a recent family member that attended your support group, and that really spawned into another meeting to where we were able to take those concerns, and maybe unsettledness she was feeling, because she is long distance and far away. And we were able to help her through that. And she, after your support group, she felt better. And then after the meeting, she felt even better. So, I mean, that's our whole goal.
Yep. Yeah. We want to empower people as much as we can.
I just want to butter you guys up because you deserve it. But Amanda's comment here, such smart, brilliant women with loving hearts, such a good compliment. I truly thank you guys for your time today and everything you do, because you put in so much work to just make these families and teams feel supported. And I just appreciate that so much. So I think we did it. We'll be
Thanks
back.
for hosting, Rachel.
I cannot wait till you guys to come back for another topic, because there's just so much in the world of memory care. So I'm excited. But next week we will talk of a traditions topic. So join us then, and I'll see you next week.
Bye all. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.